Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the October 6, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 1:01 p.m. Ms. Fennessy, can we get a roll call?
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Chair Escobedo.
Here.
Vice Chair Bonderson.
Here.
Commissioner Bauke is absent. Commissioner Hickens.
Here.
Commissioner Lodge.
Here.
Commissioner Wardlow,
Here.
Commissioner Wiscom.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. So we'll move on to preliminary matters, and we'll start with 2A. Ms. DeBus, are there any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of X agenda items?
Chair Escobedo, we have none.
And how about any announcements or appeals?
Yes, Chair Escobedo, I do have two announcements. First, I would like to just let everyone know that our advisory group recruitment is currently going on, and that includes recruiting for the Planning Commission. The deadline to apply is October 10th at 5 p.m. And there's more information on the city's website for anyone that's interested.
Thank you.
And then my second announcement is kind of a begrudging announcement. I wanted to let the Planning Commission know that after more than 21 years with the city, Renee Brooke, our city planner, is moving on to Bend, Oregon, where she will be taking a position as the planning manager. So we've really enjoyed working with Renee. She has a lot of knowledge. She's very professional, and she just has a passion for planning, so she will absolutely be missed in our department. Dan Gullett, the principal planner, will be filling in for her in the interim while the recruitment is underway.
Wow, a big loss, but a big gain for Bend, Oregon. Thank you for that. 2C, review, consideration, and action on the following draft Planning Commission meeting minutes and resolutions. We have the September 15th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Are there any edits to the minutes from my colleagues? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
Move their approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Commissioner Lodge, a second from Commissioner Higgins. Any commissioner comment on the motion? Not seeing any. Ms. Fennessy, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Higgins,
Yes.
Commissioner Lodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Wardlow,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscom,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bonderson,
Yes.
and Chair Escobedo.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. That will close out preliminary, oh, we have one more. 2D, so we'll open up public comment for members of the public that would like to comment on any items that are not on today's agenda. I do not believe we have any speaker slips for in person, but Ms. Fennessy, do we have anyone online?
Thank you. I do not see any hands raised for general public comments, but we did receive 2 written correspondence letters from Rob Fredericks and Francesca Galt that was distributed to the Planning Commission prior to this meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Fennessy. So we'll close out preliminary matters, and we will move on to our first of 2 items. It's 2315 3A, 2315 Edgewater Way. This project consists of demolition of an existing 2-story single-family residence and attached garage totaling a little over 3,500 square feet, and construction of a 3,285 square foot 2-story single-family residence with an attached 730 square foot 2-car garage, a 600 square foot basement, and a 625 square foot attached ADU. This is a discretionary application for a coastal development permit. And we have Ms. Broadison here to give a staff presentation. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Escobedo and Commissioners. Thank you for the introduction and reading the project description. As you mentioned, the project's located at 2315 Edgewater.
Ms. Broadison, is your microphone on?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Can you hear me now? Okay. The project's located, as you stated, on the Mesa at 2315 Edgewater Way. And it's located mid-block between Mesa Lane and Mohawk Road, south of Cliff Drive, and it is a bluff-top property. And as you described, I'll briefly go through. The project is proposed to demolish an existing 2-story single-family residence and a garage and construct a new 2-story house with a basement, an attached garage, and an accessory dwelling unit above the garage. Here is the site plan, and it shows Edgewater Way to the left, and towards the right is the bluff and the ocean area. And you can see the garage in the front on the left, and the main house. There's a pool and some patios on the bluff side. The ADU will comply with Chapter 2886 of the municipal code, being 625 square feet, and will contain all of the required residential elements. The maximum floor area of the ADU will not exceed 50% of the main house. The FAR floor area ratio is 99%, including the main house and structures, which is also consistent with zoning standards. The project was reviewed and supported by the Single Family Design Board, and no parking for the ADU is required because this project site is located less than a half a mile from the nearest public transit stop. This project was reviewed for consistency with the Coastal Act, and it is not in or near an ESHA, which is an environmentally sensitive habitat area. It was not deemed an archaeologically sensitive area. It has adequate public services and will not block access to or from the beach. Again, the Single Family Design Board reviewed the project, and it was not anticipated to impact any important public views, and the project will not contribute to geologic instability as the development is landward of the Coastal Bluff Edge Development Buffer. Stormwater will be directed to an underground retention chamber, and this slide shows the stormwater improvements, and you can see the underground retention chambers are on the left in the driveway area. So all the drainage will be captured from all the impermeable surfaces and drained and pumped towards the retention chambers in the driveway. Tree removal, there will be 7 trees to be removed. These subjects are regarding the land use policy, consistency with the coastal land use plan. So 7 trees will be removed consisting of palms and eucalyptus and replaced by 4 fruit trees. And the remaining trees will be protected in place. And this slide shows the landscape plan with the proposed new trees in the front to the northeast of the driveway. Regarding coastal hazards, the long-term rate of retreat for the bluff in this area is 4 inches per year, and the expected rate of retreat over the life of the residence is approximately 41 feet due to anticipated sea level rise. All proposed development is well out of the Coastal Bluff Edge Development Buffer. And this slide shows the Coastal Bluff Edge is the blue line that is near the pool, and then Coastal Bluff Edge Development Buffer, thank you. And then the Coastal Bluff Edge is the blue line that's to the right of the existing foundations. So you can see that all the new development will be out of that area per coastal plan requirements. I should mention that, as we noted at the site visit, there were 3 patio areas, and this slide shows that these patio areas were the location of a house in the 1960s, and due to landslide instability or soil instability, those structures were moved away closer to the street, and the patios were left to remain. Because those structures and foundations were pre-Coastal Act, they are allowed to remain on site. However, there are specific conditions of approval that will let the applicants and any future property owners know that they cannot do anything to make them last longer or stabilize them structurally for the future. Also, the project was reviewed, as I said, by the Single Family Design Board, and the Single Family Design Board requested the applicant to restudy the size, bulk, and scale, and the roof of the oval element in the front of the house, and restudy the second floor plate heights. And the applicant responded by breaking up the massing and the ridge lines along the west elevation, and they can go into more detail on how they responded to the SFDB. The board found that these changes were appropriate and found the massing and roof lines improved, and the project will return to Single Family Design Board subsequent to today's meeting for further review. Here's a slide showing the, what's this one? Which slide is the west elevation. On the right is towards the driveway. The left is towards the driveway, sorry. Didn't have my caption correct. So the left is towards the driveway, and then on the right is the area towards the bluff. This is the east elevation, so again, the right area is where the driveway is. And as I said, the applicant can go into more detail about the broken up massing and roof elements. And here's a picture of the north elevation, which will be seen from the street, and the south elevation, which won't be seen from the street. It's the bluff side that will be facing the ocean. The project was reviewed for CEQA, and it was found categorically exempt based on Section 15303, which allows for construction of residential buildings and accessory structures. And that concludes staff's recommendation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the project, make the findings in the staff report, and subject to the conditions of approval in Attachment A. The architect is here from Blackbird Architects, so I will let them make their presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Broderson. And we will welcome the applicant team if they have a presentation or would like to say anything. You'll have 15 minutes for your presentation. Any time left over, you can save till after public comment to respond to any public comment.
Stop share. Oops.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Chair Escobedo, members of the Planning Commission, and staff. Again, thank you for your work here on the commission. Today, with the team, we have Courtney Miller from Courtney Miller Landscape Architects, important member of the team, Shaheen Ghazvini Zadeh, which is a challenging, sometimes, name, even after all the years we've worked together. He's very patient with us. And I believe that Pamela and Ralph Pohl, the owners of the property, are online with us, and they're really appreciative to be here now and anxious to be part of the neighborhood. The project is, if we go to the first slide on that presentation, there's a few introductory things. It's a multi-generational home that includes the ADU, truly a granny unit in this case, and the sort of vitalization and modernization of the site, taking an older sort of accreted kind of a house and just unifying it into a project that can be. Is it coming? Okay, great. That essentially can modernize and relate to the site in sort of an up-to-date and protective way.
And we can take a second, and I stopped your time while they get the presentation up.
Thank
Fantastic.
you, Chair, members of the commission. Thank you. This is just the view from the street, and we'll come back to that. Again, a sort of a revitalized use of the site. If we go to the next slide, page 2. My comments will be abbreviated, and if there are questions, we're happy. I think the staff has done a fairly good report. This shows that Western Mesa location. Next slide, 3. Looking from the north towards the coast, zooming in, next slide, 4. Here you can see the aerial where you see our parcel, the Pohl's parcel, with its existing situation. It's this long, narrow site, and all of these Edgewater properties have most of them have a fairly narrow frontage on Edgewater, and you can see the diagonal relationship to Edgewater at this point. Next slide. I think that's pretty clear. You can see that to the left, which is the west, you can see, I think we'll just go to the next slide. This is a really good slide because you see all of the sort of properties and their addresses. 2315 is the Pohl's property. 2317 is the bluff fronting one-story house. 2321 is the street fronting two-story residence in that H shape. 2327 further to the left is a full two-story house. And then 2307 to the right of 2315 is a two-story residence, and the existing development at 2315 is a two-story project. You can see on 2317 this kind of critical flag part of the property that reaches out to Edgewater. That portion of the property is 17 feet, and we believe it's actually a good buffer between 2315 and 2321. So next. Here you can just see where the proposed project is close to the same footprint as the existing development, a little bit further back from the street because the existing garage is actually in the front yard setback. Next. You can see from the site visit, you saw this situation here looking at the existing garage. That garage faces to the left there to the east in a way that doesn't actually meet planning requirements anymore either. So we'll be facing the garage to the street, which is the prevalent development along Edgewater. Next. Just some neighborhood style and development palette. Next. Which is diverse. The house directly to the left of, to the east of our, the Poles property. Next. The house directly to the west, to the right, if you will, of the Poles property with that driveway from 2317 there that goes down between two fences and 2 rows of planting to the bluff side property. Next. The existing project with the garage on the front and the sort of gently sloping terrain, which is kind of an integral and slightly challenging part of the project, even though it's subtle. But the development as that's existing and proposed sort of maintain this, this smaller piece on the front and then a bigger piece in the middle of the property. Next. Just the context again, this sort of east-facing side. All of these properties are kind of offset, you know, north-south from each other because of the diagonal relationship to the street. Next. This is that 2317 access part, flag part of the property that runs down. You can see to the west on the right, the continuous fence and the Poles property on the left with these 2 rows of, in essence, buffer planting. Next. The south side of the existing property with this 2-story face to the ocean side. None of these properties are visible to the beach from anywhere along here because it's a long, steep bluff. Here you can see that it's about 4.5 feet above the existing grade with that existing property, and we're proposing on this side to be essentially really, really close to that existing grade with the great room development. Next. Views to the east with the neighbor. You can see this glorious cypress out on the edge. And next. Views kind of to the south and to the west, existing hedge and screen plantings. Next. Down the bluff. Next. This one shows the lot size as it exists now with the 22,600 square feet. I think you're pretty familiar with this. We can go to the next. You can see the proposed development essentially in the same situation, and you can go to one more. Those blue lines are the bluff edge, the bluff setback, and the street setbacks. Here, the demolition plan, essentially the building is to be removed and the 7 trees to be replaced with 7 trees or tree-like plantings. Next. Here you can see the proposed site plan with the street at the front. There's again this gentle terrain as you come down. That next. The landscape plan, Courtney is here and available to answer questions Again, it's a kind of a tight site, and she's doing a good job with it. Next. The civil plan, there's a lot of attention has been given to stormwater management, and the polls are interested in the site, water, energy, and other flows. In essence, the stormwater, anything that's going towards the bluff, which the site slopes to, will be captured, pumped to these chambers that are below the driveway, held for a certain amount of time, if not indefinitely, also then reused in slow fashion in the landscape, but judiciously, because the bluff isn't really allowed to get much irrigation on it. So we could talk about that if you have questions. Next. The ground floor and basement, you can see that there's a garden courtyard adjacent to the garage. There's an entry space that shares the stair and the front door, and a great room. In essence, that's what's on the ground floor. The site plan and the house is designed with a little elevator that would serve all 3 levels, basement, ADU, and main floor level. This multi-generational house is definitely designed for comfortable aging and inclusion of caregivers and aging parents. Next. We calculated that FAR actually at 98.2, but that includes the ADU. If you exclude the ADU, we're below that 85% mark. Next. Sorry, can you go back just ever so briefly on that second floor? The second floor has bedrooms, the ADU, and a laundry. So it's really just the sort of the private spaces in essence. And you can see the sort of staggered relationship to the adjacent development. Next. The SFDB asked for, and we responded with play along this lower, the western elevation, and play in the roof, and also then the inclusion of these flat spots for mechanical equipment, technical stuff, and photovoltaics, so that could be integrated. The project aims to be net zero, to be grid tied, and to have battery backup. So there's some benefit to the grid, to itself, to resiliency. Then these stormwater measures are also backed up with backup power. So next. These site sections are, I think, pretty self-explanatory. The street to the right and down this long bluff to the ocean. Next. This is the north elevation on the bottom, and a section through the middle that just shows we're sort of like right in the same massing flow with the neighborhood development in terms of the heights and so forth. I think that's clear. The garden court entry follows the existing terrain down on that upper elevation where the front door is. Next. Again, showing the sort of massing relationship cutting through the ADU there, and then showing, this shows 5 separate parcels. On the left is 20, I forget the numbers, but you can see on the left is the 3rd parcel over. In the middle is the 2nd parcel over. There in the buffer gap to the left of us is that flag driveway. Then there's 2315, second from the right, and on the far right is the neighboring development. Next. This palette, as proposed, is a gentle, soft, warm Mediterranean palette, terracotta, plaster, stone, limited stone accents, and then dark-colored steel metal windows. Next. Sorry, I'm using the whole 15. I thought it would be faster. The south elevation, the big windows there on the bottom are incorporated under a portico, if you will, so it's just a covered outdoor space, so they're deeply recessed, even though that space cannot be seen from anywhere off the property. And then upstairs are 2 little patios and the bedroom. this west elevation, the breakup is on from left to right and top to bottom in the roof and in the surface of the walls with mostly walls to this side and limited punched windows. Next. That's really the end of our commentary, but we're available for questions. And again, I really appreciate your work.
Thank you. Stop. 1:38 left. All right, so we will open up public comment on this item. We do not have any speaker slips currently, but Ms. Fennessy, do we have any online public speakers?
Thank you. If you would like to make a public comment, please follow the instructions on screen. We do have one hand raised by Mahesh, and I will unmute you and allow you to speak. And you have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm the neighbor at 2321 Edgewater Way, the property directly west of the property that was shown in one of the images. I basically have two major concerns. The first is the bluff top setback buffer that's being used as the basis for approving this project. I obviously understand there was a geologist that suggested 41.5 feet from the top of the bluff. And it seemed like there was some comments that the bluff is generally stable here. Both are sort of inconsistent with other decisions that have been made here and the history of the stability of this bluff. There have been two, relatively recent incidents. There was one in 2000 where there was a landslide on the neighboring property's bluff, which is 2317 Edgewater Way. And then before that, in 1975, there was a landslide that impacted the subject property, 2315 Edgewater Way, that required the house to be moved back. So the bluff is not stable here, as far as I understand. And when 2327 Edgewater Way, which is 2 homes away, also at the front of the bluff, got approved just in 2019, they had an 88-foot setback. And they weren't allowed to build a pool, as far as I'm aware. I believe Adam Simmons was the geologist on that. And I'm just trying to understand how, a property that's 2 houses away has such a different setback limitation and has a pool so close to the bluff. Anyway, that's one big concern. The other one is really about my privacy, which is I was not able to get my comments into the second SFDB meeting because I didn't get certainly didn't.
If you can wrap up your thought, your public comment time is done.
Okay. Can I just finish in 10 seconds or?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so the pictures I sent across didn't make it to the meeting, but basically the entirety of this house is going to overlook my backyard, a 2-story house. Right now, that part of that overlooks my backyard is a 1-story house, and there really isn't landscaping there. So then,
Okay.
and I'm not able to grow my trees there because they don't get
Thank
enough
you.
sunlight. So
Thank
part
you
of
for your
this,
public
any
comment.
approval here should.
All right. We do have one public commenter, Jill Ryan, in person. If you want to come up to the podium, and I will set your timer at 2 minutes. If you give me 1 second. And you are good to go.
I just have, I have a couple of questions.
If you want to pull the mic down, and I'll reset
Okay.
your time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm 2317, so my driveway is right next to them. And I was wondering, how much space is there in between my driveway and the structure? Because right now, some of the spaces are like 3 feet.
Oh, we can't answer public comment, but we could take notes and.
Oh, okay, all right. And my other one, I was worried about the drainage from that house since I am lower. All the water and debris comes down my driveway into my property. And that was my other concern. And also the pool area, I've been there since 1959, so I know about the 1970, demolition stuff, slip. And so I was concerned about the area under the pool and how stable it is and how that will be for the rest of us on the bluff. How it will impact, as well as the basement. How is that going to impact the bluff and my property? And then there's comment about the trees on the driveway. They've been there a long time, not that I don't want them to be gone, but their roots are underneath my driveway. How is that going to impact me? How much, destruction am I going to get? And how will they get the building supplies to the front of their property? Is that my responsibility for them to use my driveway? Or, because I've had to do that last time with the house behind me. So, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. And Commissioner Higgins has a quick question for you.
Ms. Ryan,
Ms. Ryan, Commissioner Higgins has a quick question for you.
so you're to the west.
Yes.
Did you participate in any of the other hearings with the Design
No,
Review Board?
No, my husband died, and so he was always in on this,
He was in, yeah.
not me. First time.
Have you talked to the applicant team at all or the owners at all about your
No,
questions?
I don't know the people.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, well, maybe, I don't know, with staff has an opportunity to answer some of your questions possibly at the end of the
Okay.
hearing.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Do we have any other online public speakers?
Thank you. We do not have any other hands raised online, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Thank you, Ms. Fennessy. So now we will turn it back to the commission for questions. Who would like to kick off questions? Commissioner Wiscombe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple quick questions. Just a clarification by Ms. Miller, please, for the landscape. We have LUP policy 4.3-13 about tree protection and replacement. So you're removing 7 trees, and I just want to hear from you on, I think the architect said you're replaced with 7 trees or tree-like plantings. And staff report says the quantities of new trees aren't identified. So could you just clarify the fact, it's fine that it includes in my mind, it's fine that it includes the 3 fruit trees, but is it 7 for 7?
Chair Escobedo, Commissioner Wiscombe, thank you for that question. Yes, so the replacement is actually 7 for 7.
Okay.
On the plans, that's an error we didn't catch in the staff report. We are proposing 3 citrus trees, 1 olive, 2 Italian cypress, and 1 dragon tree, currently on the plans.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, as we, work through the next phases of the project, we'll be looking for other opportunities to kind of squeeze in what we can, but as you know, it's a very tight site. So if we had the ability to introduce any additional trees, we would certainly be doing that. We just can't do that safely. There's not enough space.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you were meeting, we didn't discuss it on site, but you were meeting our LUP policy 4.3-13 with 7 for 7. Okay.
I believe so, but I will point out that according to that policy, fruit trees do not count. So that is why I believe staff has asked you to weigh in on that item specifically, because technically we're introducing 3 trees for 7
Three citrus
removals.
trees that, yeah.
And 4 fruit trees, which don't comply, according to the policy.
Right, okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then I think that's my only question for you. And then I just have 2 questions on the conditions of approval. And I don't know, Mr. Busk, maybe, would you be the one to answer these? Since you're the
Commissioner
one that
Wiscombe?
inserts things into our C of A when we need it?
Chair Escobedo and Commissioner Wiscom, I no longer have that ability like we used to have on Zoom, but either Kelly or I will
Okay.
try to answer your question.
Yeah, okay. So if I go to the conditions of approval on page 14 of 168, and I'm on B12, and it goes to, it's at the top of the page, it goes to E. And I'm just wondering, when we were on site, they talked about the drainage trench, I think where the curb is at the end of the legally non-conforming patios. So we don't seem to have a condition in here that I could find, and that's where Ms. DeBus comes in, because she finds all sorts of things I can't find. It's not there, it's here, no. But we don't seem to have a condition that that gets hand dug. And I'm just wondering if we could add that.
Commissioner Wiscom, I believe you are correct. So that is certainly something that the Planning Commission could add.
So it's like 20 for Ms. DeBusk and 1 for Wiscom. Okay. Okay, great. And then the next one's a little bit trickier, because when we were on site, I'm on, again, page 14, and I'm on the tree removal and replacement section. And I just, I'm a little bit concerned about tree 8, which is the tree that's listed in fair condition. I think it's listed as a lemon-scented eucalyptus or something like that. But and it says in the notes that it may be a liability for the building. And I'm just wondering if we could add a condition that allows that tree to be assessed on-site during construction, and either, per arborist recommendations, either the dead wood trimmed out of it or the very long limb that hangs over the current roof line gets trimmed off, or the tree gets removed, period, whatever the arborist feels is appropriate during construction. Is that possible?
Chair Escobedo and Commissioner Wiscom, yes, that would be a potential condition that you could add.
Okay, okay, fine, good. And that's really all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscom. Commissioner Higgins?
So for planning staff, or maybe Ms. Ostranger, conditions of approval 7 through 11, my question is, are those all now stock standard conditions for CDPs that came out of our new land use plan?
Commissioner Higgins, yes, that is correct.
And those, all, that exact language came from Coastal, or who wrote all that?
Commissioner Higgins, it varies. Some of them were included in the land use plan word for word, and so we've just reiterated them here. If there are any wording changes, it's just to make them make more sense in the scope of a condition of approval. But yeah, they essentially reiterate land use plan policies.
And then, so you pick up condition 12, which is not stock, but it speaks to the existing site improvements and foundation work, right? And then, so I don't think I've ever seen something like this where they really are, they have to do some sort of inspections or maintenance reports to verify that there's no erosion happening underneath the patios. And if there is, they then have to remove it? Or is it they have to remove it no matter what in 20 years?
Commissioner Higgins, the way the condition is worded is it identifies 20 years maximum, but then at the end of that time period, it does say that you can reevaluate them, and we can look at that information to determine what happens next. But whatever happens next would require a new coastal development permit, so it would come before the Planning Commission.
Okay, so let's just say in 20 years, there's an inspection, and you would be putting that on your calendar?
Commissioner Higgins, yes, that is.
They'll put it on Ms. Brooks' calendar. they determine that there is not any erosion, but the permit to come back, there's a permit then that would come back to keep the structures there because we've had a public hearing to deliberate that there's no erosion?
Commissioner Higgins, that is correct. To remove the structures, they would not come back for a hearing, but if they wanted to maintain them any longer, it would come back.
And was that crafted by staff? Or was that within the confines of the
Commissioner Higgins, I believe this is also new policy language within our
Okay.
coastal land use plan.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Higgins. Other commissioner questions? Vice Chair Bonderson, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair Escobedo. I do have a question, and we were able to discuss it on site, but perhaps because it has come up in both of the public comment questions regarding the bluffs and the drainage and the potential erosion, deterioration of the soil. Perhaps we can have the applicant speak quickly on the drainage plan that they have put into place as part of this proposal. I found it to be quite interesting while we were on site. Maybe they could just remind us what that drainage system is that they are proposing. It may put the neighbor's mind at ease.
We're waiting for them to pull up the plan set.
I can see it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to comment on that and describe it. So when the civil plan comes back up, everything drains naturally towards the bluff. So that's where we're going to be intermittently capturing stormwater from the roofs, from the driveway, from the flat work, and even from the site and from those little patios out there from 50 years ago that are former footings. So a hand-dug trench drain could be made out at the far edge, and that's actually in the plans. All of this is in the plans. And each of those places where the stormwater is captured has drainage to a sump that has the backup power. So we've got at least a couple of different sumps that capture this runoff, which should be modest in essence. We're talking about a total of capturing a certain amount of drainage. Everything about that plan goes beyond anything that's there now. Right now, it all just goes over the edge, and that's that. A lot of thought is given to protecting the bluff edge. So at each step, there are storm drains. All of those storm drains, including from the roof, go to sumps, and the sumps then pump it back uphill to the chambers underneath the driveway. And then again, those are slowly reused in either irrigation, or if it's more than what will fit in those chambers, there's actually the ability to pump some of that overflow into the street side stormwater system. So it's really a pretty substantial effort in that regard. Regarding the whole stability of that side, Todd Tranby and Earth Systems did it's in the report, it's 70 pages long, really with a very deep borings looking at the 70-year migration potential of that bluff edge. And he was putting his reputation on the line with all of these, and he was very comfortable with his recommendation of defining that 70-year setback line. Does that answer, Commissioner Bonderson, does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to follow up with a quick question. From your understanding of this system, would you say with confidence that any type of drainage would be collected before it spills onto the neighboring properties as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. A basic tenet of the civil design is that nothing goes off of our site towards the neighbor. Thank you for reminding me of that question. I do want to assure that. And just by the way, Some of that drainage is improved because the existing structure, as Ms. Ryan pointed out, the existing structure meanders almost entirely within that western setback, as does the existing structure go on the eastern setback. So the new proposed development is completely within the zoning requirements of being at least 6 feet back at all points. So all of that would be improved in relation to Ms. Ryan's property, and the project requires no access other than from the street and across 2315's own property.
Thank you very much. That concludes my questions. I appreciate your explanation for all of us to know.
Thank you, Vice
Commissioner.
Chair Bonderson. Commissioner Higgins?
Sorry, I did have one more question for you. You mentioned the elevator. Did you say that connected the basement to the ADU? Or just the basement to the second level?
The elevator connects the basement to the main level, to the garage level, which is slightly offset, and to the second floor, which the ADU and the second floor bedrooms are in essence on the same level up there with each other. So that little elevator connects all of those levels to
But
accommodate.
there's no access from this elevator on the second level to the ADU. It's because it's blocked off, right?
The elevator arrives in the main residence, but because it's seen as a multi-generational residence, then grandma can come in through the garage and go out through the upstairs to the ADU.
Oh, you could, okay, got it. And it's a full residential elevator, not a dumbwaiter?
Not a dumbwaiter, a small residential elevator.
And you didn't include the basement area in your FAR because it's not conditioned? Is that the general rule?
The planning rules don't include basement square footage in FARs because they're below the ground.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Higgins. Commissioner Lodge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The presenter hasn't told us who he is. I have a question. I think I know, but I'd rather have you say.
My name is Ken Radke with Blackbird Architects. Apologies.
Okay, thank you. Then I do have a question for you. From what you said before in your initial presentation, I gather that you also have, along with your photovoltaics, your solar panels, you have a battery system, so that should the power go out and it's a big storm and there's a lot of rain, your pumps will still work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, I mean, just kind of a by the way, sorry to soapbox, but the city is going to all electric, so it's an all electric house, and that's an interesting part of our future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't think we have any more questions, so now we will move on to deliberations and ultimately a motion. So, who wants to go first? Commissioner Higgins?
Yeah, I won't make a motion, but I'll wait to hear from my fellow colleagues. I think it's a very creative design, and you've packed a lot in to a very narrow lot and a constrained lot, and it is going to be tricky with staging, and so hopefully the applicant team and the owners work with the neighbors to address some of what we heard today. And maybe when you go back to SFBD, you can think about some of the things that we've seen. I'm not going to suggest required as a condition, but some things to think about are louvers on windows that only kind of let sunlight in but don't allow visibility onto a private area next door. So we've seen that sometimes. But otherwise, I think it's very creative, and it's a lot going on, in particular the basement, and it's probably going to be a longer than normal construction process, so we'll just work with your neighbors on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Higgins. Commissioner Lodge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree that it's a handsome project, and And actually, it's improved because, in relation to the neighbors, because it meets the requirement of the 6-foot setback, so that there will be more room between the neighbors and than with the new project than there is with the existing one. On the fruit trees, you know, if there were going to be things like a deciduous fruit, like an apricot tree, they're beautiful when they're in leaf, but since they're going to be citrus, I think that's a good use. The citrus is evergreen. They grow to be beautiful trees that live for a very long time. So I think that's a good use there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lodge. Commissioner Wardlow.
Thank you. I just want to thank the applicant team for the work that they've done and the specific attention on the bluffs and how you all have put in a lot more protections around drainage and ensuring that spill does not go over to neighbors. I'm excited to see this project go forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with my fellow commissioners. I think it's a nice project, very thoughtfully done, thoughtfully designed, and I think you've covered most bases. I would like to see a couple things added to the conditions of approval. Any trenches be hand dug if they're in buffer areas, including the coastal edge development buffer area, and also a condition on tree number 8, which is in fair condition, and maybe a liability for the building according to the arborist, that be assessed during construction. I don't have any problems with the replacement trees. Ms. Miller discussed on site where they'd be located, and they're at the front of the building, at the front of the development more, and I think that's appropriate, particularly if they require a little more irrigation than most of the trees would. So I'm fine with that, and I'm happy with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bonderson.
Thank you. I would also like to chime in with my positive feedback. I'm very pleased to see a project like this done so carefully and meticulously in the areas of both design and also landscaping with so much attention and concern with the soil and the coastal edge. It's obviously a very sensitive site, and the more care that is given to the design and then of course followed up through construction is always important, but also much appreciated, I'm sure, but from the neighbors and from the community. I'm sure it does not need to be said, but I hope that continued care will be given as the site is developed. If once the pool is begun, and if once the earth is being dug and moved, and the cut is being taken off site, and we see something shifting on that property, it's very, very important that there is a plan in place, and perhaps the pool does not get developed. I'm sure that you have a plan in place for emergencies like that, and when we're so close to the edge of a bluff, we want to always be paying attention to details daily. But as I mentioned, I'm sure that that's not something new for you to think about, something to continue paying attention to. And I'll just end by saying I'm very, very pleased with this project, and I'm looking forward to approving this project.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bonderson. I will, too, keep my comments brief. I'm in support of this project. I enjoy the design. I am particularly a big fan of the battery storage paired with the PV on the roof. I think the drainage is definitely an improvement to what we have currently in current conditions. I do share Commissioner Higgins' concern about staging and concerns for the neighbors during construction, so I encourage the applicant team to work with their neighbors and be, I'm sure you're going to be thoughtful about how you stage and during construction. I am in support of both of the conditions mentioned by Commissioner Wiscombe, the hand digging of the trenches, the drainage trenches, and then also the condition for tree number 8 to reassess the health of that tree. What else? Oh, and I do support the use of citrus trees. I think that that will, it may not count towards the replacement tree number, but I think it's a good use. So with that said, I'm in support, and we will entertain a motion from the commission. Commissioner Wiscombe.
I was waiting, really. So I will move the findings on page 9 and 10 of 168 of our report. There's 2 findings for the coastal development permit, and approve the project with just 2 additions to the conditions of approval. One in, where are we here, page 14, which is B12, and perhaps adding F after E there, or wherever Mr. Bus thinks it belongs, about hand-dug trenches in buffers. And also on that same page, under C2, perhaps adding C, which is the condition of tree 8, which is listed as fair in the arborist report, which I believe gets attached to the plans. I think that's what I read somewhere. But I think this should reference the arborist report on the plans, and that this tree gets assessed by the arborist during construction, and with steps taken to reduce liability to the building.
I'll second that if Commissioner Wiscombe is finished.
Yep. So we have a motion from Commissioner Wiscombe, a second from Vice Chair Bonderson. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Higgins? Oh, no? You're just preparing?
That's not the red button.
Oh.
Hit the green button.
All right. Ms. Fennessy, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Lodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Wardlow,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe,
Yes.
Commissioner Higgins.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bonderson,
Yes.
and Chair Escobedo.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
And I believe there's a 10-day appeal period. So there's a 10-day appeal period for this item. And with that, we will thank the applicant team and Ms. Ryan, who made it out today. And we will close out item 3A and move on to item 3B, which is 222 Mesa Lane. It is here for a discretionary application for a net floor area modification and a front setback modification. And we have Ms. Plummer here to give the staff presentation. Welcome, Ms. Plummer.
And we'll give Ms. Plummer just a moment to get the
Oh,
new
perfect.
information pulled up on screen.
Let me just read the description for everyone watching. This is an 8,009 square foot site that is currently developed with a single unit residence and detached garage. The proposed project involves improvements and additions to the existing residence comprised of a 544 square foot first floor addition a 690 square foot second story accessory dwelling unit, 275 square foot covered patio, 309 square foot porch, and 224 square foot roof deck. All right, just hang with us for another minute. All right. Welcome, Ms. Plummer.
Thank you for the technical difficulties set up. Yes, so I am Pilar Plummer, an associate planner with the City of Santa Barbara Planning and Zoning Division, and we'll be discussing 222 Mesa Lane, as you read in the description. So this is the project location. On the screen, you're seeing an aerial shot of the project site on Mesa Lane. The project site is identified in yellow, is in proximity to the Mesa Lane stairs towards the bottom of the screen. The overall project involves additions to the existing single-unit residence. It also includes a new 690 square foot accessory dwelling unit, which is going to be a new 2-story component to the project. The project also includes conversion of an existing detached garage to accessory space, and you can't quite see it, but I'll show you on another aerial shot. The next slide. The project also includes removal of this existing driveway and curb cut, and a new driveway and curb cut at the new 2-car garage location. And there will also be an uncovered parking space located within the new driveway. And on the aerial shot, again, this is that accessory structure, which is their current garage, which again is being converted to accessory space. It is a non-conforming structure located within the setback, and they'll be removing that driveway, putting in a new driveway here. So a little bit of background on this project. I was initially reviewed by the Single Family Design Board in April of 2021 and did receive positive comments on the overall project design, the proposed square footage, which at the time was a total of 85% FAR. That did not include the square footage for the ADU, which I'll cover in a little bit more detail later, as well as comments on an interior setback modification to allow the change of use of this garage structure to just accessory flex space. In June of 2021, the staff hearing officer did review that setback modification and approved it. Subsequently, in this year of 2022, the California Coastal Commission certified the city's ADU ordinance for adoption in the coastal zone. And essentially what that means is any project that has not been issued a building permit is required to comply with the city's ADU ordinance. Why that matters to this project is the ADU is now counted in the total net floor area. So although the total square footage of the project didn't change from 2021, because the floor area for the ADU is now counted, it went from 85% to 107%, hence requiring a modification by the Planning Commission. In addition, the project site is located in a key public access area, and under the city's ADU ordinance, we require a parking space for the ADU, even if it is within a half mile to be proposed for the project. This is just a zoning consistency table. As I previously mentioned, the existing condition on the site does include a non-conforming structure, that detached garage building, which is going to be accessory space, which is 1 foot 2 inches from the interior property line. There's no change to that building as far as the existing encroachment and what was approved by the staff hearing officer. And then the parking, which involves a parking space for the primary residence to be located in the driveway in a tandem configuration, and I'll show that a little bit more on the site plan and floor plan, as well as the modification for FAR at 107%. So this is the site plan. Hopefully you can see, and I do have the architectural set, which we can flip to later during the applicant presentation. This is the detached accessory building. And this shows the existing residence. You can see the existing driveway is being proposed to be removed, and a new driveway location, as well as the new garage, which is a 2-car garage, and one of the parking spaces in the driveway in a tandem configuration, while the other space will be assigned to the ADU in the garage. And this is a new first floor addition, and the ADU will be a second floor addition above. In terms of the design review hearings, the project has been reviewed on 3 occasions. First in 2021, which is when they received positive comments on the overall project, including the setback modification for the accessory building. And then in July of 2022 and August of 2022, the reason for the 2 hearings in 2022 is at the July 18th hearing, there was only 4 members of the SFDB in attendance. And while that counts as quorum for the hearing to take place, that was not sufficient members to vote on the FAR modification nor to forward it to Planning Commission. So although they unanimously found the FAR modification supportable and the project aesthetically appropriate to the neighborhood, they had to continue it to the August 1st hearing where they got that additional vote. And then this, just to give you some context of the design, it shows the new garage and this upper story ADU, which is 690 square feet net. Okay, and just some background about the FAR. So the maximum net floor area applies to 1-family residence zones that have a lot size less than 15,000 square feet. In addition, it needs to include a main or accessory building that is either 2 or more stories tall or has a building height that is greater than 17 feet. This particular project is on a lot that is 8,009 square feet and includes a new 2nd story and also will be greater than 17 feet in height. When a project exceeds the maximum allowable floor area, they are required to provide supplemental materials such as story poles or other visual aids. However, those can be waived at the discretion by the design review body, and they were waived for this particular project. The SFDB has found in each hearing that they felt that the project was compatible with the neighborhood and appropriate as far as size, bulk, and scale. And just to cover some options that the applicant considered that would have potentially eliminated the FAR modification but were ultimately not pursued. To the right, you'll see the upper story ADU. The ADU does include a stair component, an interior stair component, and that was considered important to the owners. They did want some flexibility with this ADU to either provide for options for long-term renters or in-laws, and for in-laws they would want the interior access to the rest of the house. In terms of moving the stairs to potentially address the amount of floor area for that space, it wouldn't significantly reduce the floor area of that ADU. It's a 1-bedroom unit. It doesn't include additional accessory space beyond what's typically required, and it's a 1-bedroom unit that isn't at the max size that could be proposed for that particular unit. As far as the house, it's a pretty modest house. There's two bedrooms proposed plus a master suite and kitchen and dining room area, so not additional surplus space. And I think the owner is here and can talk a little bit more about, the goals with the house and, the lifestyle that they have and why they needed this particular floor plan. And lastly, the accessory building. The accessory building is 303 approximately square feet. And this particular project is about 200 square feet over the allowable floor area, so they could just eliminate that structure in order to avoid an FAR modification. However, that was not pursued for a number of reasons. One, again, they don't have additional flex space within the house or within the ADU, so it's a bonus space for the property. They do have children and feel like it's a appropriate benefit for their children to have accessory space. It's also a lot line divider. And lastly, while they could remove it, the goal isn't to just demolish it and have that structure end up in the landfill. So. In terms of the findings for the FAR modification, there are 3 findings. So the first finding is not less than 5 members of the Single Family Design Board have voted in support of the modification. This was done at the August 2022 hearing. And the other 2 findings, the subject lot has a physical condition, such as the location, surroundings, topography, or the size of the lot that generally doesn't exist on other lots in the neighborhood. And the physical condition of the lot allows the project to be compatible with existing development within the neighborhood. Staff is generally in support of the project, particularly because of the change in rules. Because of our adoption of the AD ordinance, they went from 85% to 107% without changing their overall floor area. But staff does recognize that particularly the second finding of a physical condition may be challenging. A physical condition that is on the property is that detached accessory building. Otherwise, the project is designed to generally meet other development standards that are required, such as open yard, the required parking that's needed for the development, 2 spaces for the primary residence and 1 for the ADU. And outside of the front setback modification being requested and the non-conforming building, it does comply with setbacks. The second modification that's being requested is the front setback modification for 1 parking space for the primary residence to be located in a tandem configuration in the driveway. And that's because, again, the project site is located in a key public access area in the coastal zone. That's shown in the figure to the left. Staff is supportive of this modification, number 1, because it reduces the amount of hardscape along the front lot line. They could potentially do a larger turnaround in the front setback, but that would still need a modification. They could, keep part of the additional driveway that's existing, but again, that's more hardscape that could be used for landscaping areas or visual relief within the neighborhood. So staff is supportive of it from that standpoint, as well as there's not generally anticipated noise or privacy issues for that parking space. And this is the finding for a front setback modification. So the Planning Commission would need to find that the modification is consistent with the purpose and intent of the ordinance. It is necessary to do one of the following. Specifically secure an appropriate improvement in the lot is what staff included in the staff report as far as the findings. And with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission consider the 2 requested modifications, and if they're in agreement, to approve the net floor area modification to allow 3,410 square feet on an 8,009 square foot lot, as well as the front setback modification to allow 1 of the parking spaces for the primary residence to be located in the driveway within the 20-foot front setback. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plummer. and we'll welcome the applicant team if they have a presentation. You will have 15 minutes. If you don't use all your time, you can use it after public comment to respond.
All right. Thank you. I'm Matt Hepner, and this is Tyler Dobson. And I feel Pilar's done quite a great job of presenting the project. I wouldn't want to be too redundant, but to say certainly that the intention from the beginning in redeveloping the lot was to work with as much of the existing structure as possible, as opposed to just sort of raising everything there and starting anew. In consideration of that, designing to meet the 85% FAR that was required of us at the time was also very much a driving force in that design. We were very happy to have the positive support that we did in our first conceptual review, and as such, move forward developing the design, investing quite a bit of time and money to get to the point that we could go back for project design approval. And I feel at this time, if we were to need to whittle things back, it would not only cost quite a bit in terms of time and money, but also in terms of succeeding in providing the property that they would love to have to raise their children, to have the room that they need. As you saw, the house itself is rather modest, 2 small bedrooms and a master suite, reasonably sized ADU for in-laws in the near future. The accessory space that really is what pushes us over the 100% is desirable by anybody impacted, specifically being the Dobsons as well as their adjacent neighbors who have submitted letters of support. They've lived there for, I believe, over 30 years and very much appreciate the way that does divide the lots and how that results in the use of their space. So I'll let Tyler weigh in on his thoughts and how they intend to use the property.
Thanks. Thank you, commissioners. Sorry. So, yeah, we've lived at the property for just about 7 years now, and this has been an evolving project since we purchased the property. And our main intention was to do what the neighborhood was asking for. So we actually went around and spent time with every one of our 16 contiguous neighbors. So 6 across the street, 4 on either side of us, and then the 6 behind us, and sat down with them just to take into account what was important to them. And from the ridge line in terms of the one neighbor that was going to have an ocean view, potential impact, to the type of landscape, to the color, the different type of materials, and the overall size and scope. And so, again, we originally submitted effectively a petition that was showing support of all 16 of our neighbors. During the last few rounds, I've had all of them kind of unanimously provide additional support, just saying that this is a project they want done for the neighborhood. And we've done everything we could to keep it very modest and maintain as much of the existing property as possible. We're very environmentally minded and want to impact the landfill and the overall footprint as little as possible. So the house, as noted, is still quite modest at about 2,200 feet. We do have young children, and to provide some additional space for office, instruments, et cetera, just thought it would be nice to have additional flex space with the existing garage. Certainly happy to discuss what could be most mutually beneficial for the city, but hope that there's at least awareness and appreciation for the consideration we've put into it.
All right, thank you. So we'll stop your time. We will open up public comment and then take it back to the commission for questions. So we don't have any speaker slips. Ms. Fennessy, do we have anyone online that would like to give public comment?
Thank you. If you would like to make public comment, please use the instructions on the screen. We did receive 2 written correspondence from Paulina Khan and Robert Chow, and those were distributed to commission prior to this meeting. And at this time, I do not see any hands raised, so I'll hand it back to the commission.
Thank you, Ms. Fennessy. Commissioner Higgins.
You mentioned you purchased property 7 years ago and started the process of talking to the neighbors and designing the house. When did you make application to the city initially?
it was about 2.5 years ago. So we were without children when we first started designing the house. And when we were blessed with twins, the project size and scope evolved slightly. And so with our life growing, the size and scope of the project evolved. But throughout the project evolutionary concept stage, was a lot of discussion around the neighborhood of what our intentions were and just receiving perpetual feedback. The majority of our neighbors have all been in the neighborhood for quite a while. We bought our house from the original owners that were there since 1951. And so wanting to just continue to reinforce that we wanted to have as much involvement and verbal participation and support for the project as we were.
Yeah, seems like you've done
conceptualizing
an
the
extraordinary
design.
job there, but do you remember when you applied first to the city? If you were at SFBD in April of 2021?
Probably December of 2020,
Got it.
I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from my fellow commissioners? I'm not seeing any. Vice Chair Bonderson, any questions?
Thank you, Chair Escobedo. I'm so sorry. I have a very slow response time to turning things on and turning things off over here. I don't have any questions. I had all my questions answered at the site. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now it is time for comments and deliberations. Commissioner Lodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are definitely to be commended for your outreach to your neighbors and being so thoughtful in the design. And I think this is going to be an improvement in the neighborhood while it provides what you want for your family there. So I'll be happy to make a motion to approve when we get ready there for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lodge. Commissioner Wiscombe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Commissioner Lodge. I think your outreach and working with your neighbors is really important, particularly on the Mesa where the lots are smaller and people are true neighbors. We know each other quite well. And so that really helps with the project. I think the project is thoughtfully designed. You're not asking for the world or anything. I think you should soundproof that accessory building if you're going to use it for what I think you're going to use it for. But I certainly am in favor of the project and could make the findings on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wardlow.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the work that you've done on this project. I love that you've done neighborhood outreach. I know that on the Mesa, new developments and just any remodels, it really is, it does change the character, and it seems like you guys have put together a project that really addresses the neighborhood's concerns and what the community is today. So I'm very excited for this project, and thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Higgins or Vice Chair Bonderson?
I'm happy to go first.
Yeah.
I also would love to commend this group, this family and applicant team. I really enjoyed the site visit because there was so much enthusiasm and attention to detail. And when a family puts this much effort into allowing their neighbors to participate in the process, then the outcome is clearly going to be a great big neighborhood full of supporters. It's really nice to see, and I wish we could have that always throughout the community. But thank you so much for doing your due diligence before this project came forth to us. I would be more than excited to second the motion once Commissioner Lodge makes it.
All right. Any other comments? Commissioner Higgins?
Staff report is great, and the findings are great. They'll do the trick. I could quibble that, the lot, because it's not got a great slope to it, or it's not subject to any view corridors, could add to why we can approve the modification. I appreciate the staff report that it sounded like whoever wrote the staff report wanted to put into the findings the fact that they bent over backwards with the neighborhood should be part of the reason why we approve that, which which I know we can't do, but I would if I could, because we don't see that. In stark contrast to the project we just heard, they have an unusually large property that they can't build on, but still get to count that in their FAR. And you have kind of the opposite. And you also, I would argue, we could put it in the findings that because you got stuck between regulations, we should just approve it. But I can't do that. And Ms. Ostranger will come remind me of that. But yeah, very handsomely designed project, and we should move it forward.
Thank you. I will just support all of my commissioners' comments. I think well-designed, very big that you did that much outreach and you got that much support and input into your project. So thank you so much for that. And I will turn it over to Commissioner Lodge to make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Planning Commission approve the project at 222 Mesa Lane, making the findings on pages 9 and 10 of the staff report for the net floor area, floor to lot area ratio modification, and for the front setback modification. I think that's all we need.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Lodge. I believe Vice Chair Bonderson wants to jump in.
Yeah, I'd love to second that motion. Thank you.
All right, we have a first from Commissioner Lodge, a second from Vice Chair Bonderson. Any discussion on the motion? I'm not seeing any. Ms. Fennessy, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Wardlow,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe,
Yes.
Commissioner Higgins,
Yeah.
Commissioner
Yes.
Lodge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bonderson,
Yes.
and Chair Escobedo.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Mr. Busk, I hate that I do this to you all the time. Is there a 10-day appeal period? There's a 10-day appeal period for this project. And thank you so much for being here. And with that, we'll close out this item. Congratulations. All right. So now we will move on to the administrative agenda, and this is committee and liaison reports, and we'll start with the staff hearing officer liaison report. Ms. Commissioner Higgins.
Nothing to report. We had a cancellation of a hearing yesterday.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Lodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have all the design review boards that I'm liaison to. And at a recent meeting of the Single Family Design Review Board, the staff said that the Single Family Design Review Board reviews twice as many projects as the ABR and twice as many as the Historic Architectural Board of Review and twice as many as the HLC, the Historic Landmarks Commission. This means that, they were scheduling projects way out, and so they said they really needed to have extra meetings so the projects don't get delayed. And the board's first extra meeting was on September 26th. There are only 4 full members of this 7-member board. The chair, Brian Miller, his term expired at the end of June this year, and he didn't reapply. He's continuing to serve as chair as a holdover. So because of all of this, staff on October 4th, went to the City Council Ordinance Committee, and given the ongoing challenges with this board, with getting people to apply, they proposed changes to, it's much easier to make changes for this board since it's established by ordinance rather than by charter for the others. And it's difficult to maintain a quorum for their biweekly full board meetings. And staff proposed that the board be reduced in size from 7 to 5 members, and that at least 3 members possess professional qualifications in fields related to architecture, building design, structural engineering, etc., and landscape design, and the requirement for licensed professionals be removed. And there are people who are not licensed in those fields, but that's still what they do, so that they could serve. Up to 2 of the 5 single family design review board members would be appointed from the public at large, and a quorum would constitute three members instead of 5. So the proposed amendments would expand opportunities to recruit qualified individuals and open up a pool to serve on it and to achieve a quorum on a regular basis. And I suggested to the committee that they make it possible for people who do not live within the city to also serve it, which is the case for the Historic Landmarks Commission. I believe there are 2. I know Anthony Grumbine, the chair, doesn't live in the city, and I don't think Cassandra Ensberg lives in the city either. So the ordinance committee didn't have time to discuss these proposed changes at the meeting, but it'll be coming back to them the next meeting. The City Council Sustainability Committee met on September 19th to hear reports on recent legislation regarding permitting for solar voltaic and electric vehicle charging systems. One of the measures in the state legislation is no design review. No aesthetic considerations are allowed. There was a presentation on Santa Barbara Clean Energy's home power program aimed at serving low and middle income residents, and an update to the municipal code to include state legislation relating to plastic beverage straws, stirrers, and cutlery to incorporate what the state adopted in the cities. It was also a comment on the Granada Garage Array. I don't know if you're aware, there's been for over 2 years, they've been working on a project to cover the top deck with solar panels, which would power the Granada Garage and the public library facilities. There's been a big increase in the cost from the time they started with the project. There's a variety of factors, including the actual decorative elements the Historic Landmarks Commission required, and the reduction in size to limit public view. And during the 2+ years it took to receive approval, construction costs, the steel costs and solar panel costs skyrocketed due to supply chain and tariff issues. So one other thing I wanted to mention, and Ms. Fennessy mentioned at the beginning that there was a letter received from Rob Fredericks from the Housing Authority. And that letter was to report that the Santa Barbara City Housing Authority won a national award from the Congress of New Urbanism for excellence in design for affordable housing. And they cited Casa de las Fuentes and El Carrillo and 2 other of the Housing Authority projects. And the Santa Barbara City Housing Authority has done a fabulous job, I think, in creating projects that the people who live in can feel proud that they're their homes, and that the city can be proud to have them in our community. And of course, what they do is all capitally affordable. So my compliments to the Housing Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee and liaison reports? Vice Chair Bonderson?
Thank you. I have a few quick items from ABR, which I wanted to bring back to your attention. They are projects that we have seen in earlier stages, but they have returned, so I just want to bring them to your attention. The first one happens to be new. It's a concept review for a project that some of you may remember, perhaps Commissioner Lodge. It was a project that was approved back in 2010, but then was never constructed. Let me give you a quick introduction. It's at 540 West Pueblo Street, and this is a project that will consist of an addition to the main cancer center. And the previous cancer center project that was approved back in June of 2010 included a new duplex at that site at a neighboring address, 521 West Junipero Street, and that one was never constructed. So the new project will include a parking lot with 6 parking spaces that would be constructed in place of that duplex that was approved back in 2010. And the project received an allocation of 1,614 square feet from the community benefit category by City Council. So the reason I bring this to your attention is because this project will require an amendment to the approved project and development plan approval by us. So we will be seeing this project coming forth at some point before the Planning Commission. The next project is a project we all know well. It was a continued item for return to ABR for project design approval, and it is our formerly 711 North Milpas, now 701 North Milpas that we recently saw before the Planning Commission. And they are just steadily moving through ABR. So they were continued indefinitely without comments. That project will need to come back again to be re-evaluated for project design approval. Then we have another project that, because of its controversial status, I just wanted to share in case anyone is interested in following it. But we have our Chick-fil-A restaurant down at 3707 State Street, which received both project design approval and final approval on their last visit, which was September 19th. And just to remind everyone, they had brought this project forth to convert the existing 1-lane drive-through to a 2-lane drive-through, ultimately to reduce congestion that the cars were causing out onto the street. And so to fix that long-term, this project came forth and it was approved. Last but not least, let's see, another project that I did mention it the last time. It is the project at 220 North La Cumbra, and as you all know, it is the site of the, why am I missing my words? It's not on my paper, La Cumbra Plaza area. So the project, as you know, if you're familiar with it, I did mention it before, it consists of demoing all of those existing commercial buildings on site and then constructing a new 48-unit multifamily residential development. And units would be deed restricted to low and very low income tenants with ratios to be then determined. And this project is in the early stages. It's just concept review, but for those who are interested to keep their eyes and ears peeled, it was continued indefinitely, so it will be coming back again. And the only other announcement.
Vice Chair Bonderson, if I could, can you repeat the address for that last project?
It's 220 North La Cumbra Road. And you know, now that I think about it, this may not be the, I don't think this is the one that I mentioned before, did I? No, it is. It is the one I mentioned before because it was continued. It wasn't able to be seen, and so they came back. But I'm not sure if it's the La Cumbra Plaza site. I would have to look it up. It talks about, let me just tell you a little bit more information. It says it's 100% affordable development under state density bonus program. Unlimited density is allowed, along with exceeding the 45-foot height limit in the zone. And just because you asked me, I'm gonna direct this question, if you don't mind, to Ms. DeBusk. Could you help me confirm, is this the site of the La Cumbra Plaza?
Chair Bonderson, thank you. This is not part of La Cumbra Plaza. This is a site that's north of State Street, and it's a housing authority project. There are existing medical buildings. Those are the existing structures on site.
Thank you. The moment I said it, and I couldn't come up with the term, the name, I questioned it, and then when Chair Escobedo, you questioned me, I was really sure that I messed that one up. Thanks. Thanks for taking a moment to ask. And the last announcement I have for anyone who's interested is that the State Street Advisory Committee will be meeting again after a month off. We did not meet in September, but we will be meeting on Thursday, October 27th. We usually meet on Mondays, but this is a unique situation being moved over to Thursday. And it will remain from 4 to 6 p.m. Anyone's following that, mark your calendars. Thank you, Chair Escobedo. That concludes my announcements.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bonderson. I believe those are all of our committee and liaison reports. Ms. DeBus, do we have an update on the joint meeting?
Yes, thank you, Chair Escobedo. The joint meeting has been scheduled for Friday, October 14th, so that will be on the State Street Master Plan, Planning Commission and Historic Landmarks Commission joint meeting.
And is it at the David Gephardt room?
No, actually, it will be at the Faulkner Gallery at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Ms. DeBus. So that means our meeting next Thursday will be canceled, and we will have the joint meeting on Friday, and we look forward to seeing you all there. We will adjourn this meeting at 2:42 p.m. Take care, everyone.